Hi, I'm Andrea McLean.
And I'm Nick Feeney.
And between us, we have had 5 marriages,
4 children,
3 divorces.
2 dogs.
Between us all, in sickness and in health, in love and in laughter, it is...
What is it? Teenage tantrums.
No, it's pancakes that gets us through it. Or pig pull. Or Netflix. That's what gets us through as we attempt to master midlife. Thank you for joining us for yet another, what promises to be an incredible episode. And I can say this in the full knowledge of it's not going to be exactly what you think it's going to be. Because it's never who you think it's going to be. That's our theme of today is it's never who you think it's going to be. Do you want to tell everyone how we came to this?
Well, is it because we is like watching a program that everyone else watched about, I don't know,
3 years ago.
3 years ago, and all of a sudden we're slightly late to the program, and it's only murders in the building.
Yeah, we only just discovered this week. I know.
But before we go into a big conversation about that, are we going to introduce our guests?
Sure. Well, one of the reasons we wanted to talk about It's Never Who You Think It is not just linked to our new favourite programme, but it's also because our guest today is Sara Davison, who is a divorce coach. Hi, Sara.
Hi, thanks so much for inviting me in.
And we're going to come to your meaty main of a conversation in a little bit, because I'm sure you've got so much to say, as in it's never who you think it's going to be.
Absolutely.
But in terms of, have you watched Only Murders in the Building?
I haven't, but now I'm intrigued.
Oh my God, it's so good.
It's so good. So it's on Disney Plus. It took us a while to find it because friends of ours had told us that, you know, there's this program. Clearly, we've been hearing about it on social media and everything else. We couldn't find it. We didn't know where it was. It took a lot of asking Siri and everything else. We eventually found it. And Nick, do you want to explain what the premise is?
Well, the premise is these 3 individuals who are, and again, quite a random mix of people. So you've got Steve Martin,
Who's amazing.
Martin Short,
Also.
and Selena Gomez.
Also.
And they all live in this apartment block in New York. And it's a big apartment block. It's quite the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everyone's sort of like, oh, one day I'm going to live there sort of thing. And, Steve Martin's a retired actor. Martin Short is a theatre-lovey director, isn't he? And Selena, we're not sure about Selena yet. We're still learning. But someone gets murdered in their building. And what they do is they decide...
And it makes it sound so friendly and Disney-like, doesn't it? Yeah. And then someone's murdered.
Yeah. And it is Disney,
and
so
they
it's done
decide
nicely.
to try and solve the crime.
And they do it via a podcast.
Ah, okay.
And it's just actually really simple, easy watching
How
TV.
do you think they pitched that? When they came up with the idea, we're going to get these 2 really older guys, and I'm sure they won't take offence to that because that's part of the joke. 2 much older guys and 1 younger woman, and they live in an apartment building. They try and solve a mystery through a podcast. When you say it out loud, it doesn't sound that exciting.
I think it's probably more based on the amount of podcasts that do really, really well.
True crime podcasts.
I can't even say it. True crime podcasts. And I think that is also, very much run through the program, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we're hooked and we're trying to be good. You know what it's like when you watch a Netflix program and it said next one in seconds. You're like, oh no, we go to bed. Oh, shall we watch it? Oh, it started now. We'll watch it. We'll only watch the start, And we've pretty much done the first series.
Well, we finished the first series last night because I wanted to talk about it today, and I wanted to at least have rounded up that first series, because the thing that really interested me was the whole dynamics of people who you wouldn't normally see together, because it's such a beautiful friendship that this trio form. But these 2 men are old enough to be her granddads. They're so out of touch. They don't understand the lingo. She's constantly kind of educating them into a more modern way of thinking. You can't say that anymore, and this kind of thing. And she's kind of keeping them young, and they're also nurturing her and raising her up. And I just love the idea that the whole dynamic is something that shouldn't work but really does. And that's the premise of the whole thing, is it shouldn't really work, but it does. So.
Yeah. And it's chaotic because they've got their own things going on in life. And one of them is just really in the shit for money, right? But he's the lovey, and he's like portrays this amazing. And I think, lots of people can do that in life. But how they actually just start working out who is a killer and who they blame. And I think this is where we get our sort of headline from today. It's never who you think it is, because you go, oh, it's going to be them. Oh, it's not them. Or what about them? And they literally go through the whole process and everything like that. So that leads us very nicely onto our next point.
Well, it is. It's why Sara's here. So, Sara, you are a divorce coach. Talk us through what a divorce coach is and what you do.
Yeah, catchy job title, isn't it? But yeah, I help people to cope better with any kind of breakup, separation, heartbreak. We also cover domestic abuse, toxic relationships, so any kind of relationship breakdown really, and help people to take their power back and start to feel good again. So lots of tips and tools to dial down those negative emotions, and to help people power through in all the different situations that you go through with a divorce or a breakup, separating friendships, moving out of home, managing the kids, but also getting your power back to create that future you're excited about living, because it's quite scary. The biggest fear is, will anyone ever love me again? Will I always be on my own? So it's helping people manage that and put a plan together to help them navigate that.
That's such a great idea. I wish you'd been around when I got divorced. Like,
Which
where were
time?
you? Which time? Oh, you cheeky bastard. You get divorced twice. But even that is interesting, isn't it? In terms of statistically, we were chatting just before we started recording about the statistics of getting divorced once and then what happens to future relationships after that.
Yeah, so first marriage, the divorce rate is around 50% in the UK, which is pretty much global, actually. It's the same in the States. And then second marriage, obviously, if you haven't been to me or a coach like me or a therapist, it increases and it goes up. I think it's 58%. So it jumps up. And then it's even into the 70s for the third marriage that the percentage rate you will get divorced.
You be careful.
Ooh.
It's why it's so important to do the work, because you don't have to do that. Quite often, if you learn from your mistakes, bank those lessons, because life has that funny way of teaching us the lesson. If we're not going to take it on board, we keep going round and round the same merry-go-round. So if you do bank those lessons and learn, then obviously that statistic doesn't need to worry you. But if you're just going from one relationship to the next without actually looking at what didn't work and why, and what you can change and what you're open to, then again, that can make a massive difference.
It's such a positive take on something that is so sad, so overwhelming, so heartbreaking, so disruptive when it comes to every single facet of our life. Because when you think of a marriage breaking down, it's not just this relationship between two people. It's everything. It's the friendships that end. It's the financial difficulties. It's your ability to trust again.
Yeah.
Do you know, even just hearing you say those things, it may sound like a negative, but you almost wish that couples, when they start dating and going out with each other, yes, there's life coaching, yes, there's marriage counseling and relationship coaching, but it would be such a good idea if we understood how people would cope when things go wrong. Because have you ever found this in your experience, that if you're coaching someone through a relationship breakup and maybe it hasn't quite reached that final snap, have they ever found a way back together again?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had people who have come saying, right, we're just about to start the divorce process, we're trying to work through it. And very often it is just down to communication styles. I mean, just people communicate in different ways. I've got a couple of clients who have very different conflict resolution strategies. So I've got this one couple, Mark, he's adorable, but he's very fiery. His family were very fiery. He grew up in a Greek household, and his particular family were if there was an argument, they'd stay in the room and shout it out, because that was the most loving and respectful thing to do, right? You don't walk out because that's unkind. You stay in that room and you figure it out, no matter what gets broken or what you say, and then you resolve it and you go your separate ways. Whereas his wife, Sarah, came from a very different upbringing where her parents hardly ever argued. And in fact, what they do is every time things started to get a little bit heated, they'd both leave the room. They'd even sleep on it, which I find quite hard because I can't sleep on an argument. But they would sleep on it and then come back the next day. So you put the two of them in a relationship, and Mark would want to stay in the room and she would leave. And Mark would say, well, she's being very disrespectful. She doesn't love me. She won't stay in the room. And she's saying, well, exactly the same thing about what he's doing. She found it disrespectful and really upsetting. But they were both doing the most loving thing to resolve the argument, what they thought was the right thing to do. So when they said you're being disrespectful, that just sparked even more confusion between the two of them. So they both felt unloved, even though they were both doing the most loving thing they thought at the time to resolve that problem. So just understanding these kind of communications can help you take a step back, learn from that and go, oh, okay, you're not trying to upset me. Because it's often true, isn't it, that if we did something that someone else is doing to us, it would mean something completely different. And they're doing it with a very different intention, but we're putting our own label on it. So it's looking from their point of view, from their shoes. And I think that can make a real difference. And if you learn those lessons, you can come back together.
Do you know what? It reminds us when we first got together, we ended up seeing a relationship coach, because when Andrea went through her actual face plant, as she calls it, and
breakdown
a
in
breakdown,
2019.
There were so many things that I didn't see, and I prided myself on being a great listener and being a great husband. And I said, how have I missed this? And so we went there and we just learned to look for those traits, because, like you said, you think that everyone thinks and feels the same way as you and communicates the same way as you. So it's understanding what that new dynamic is. And one of the things that we did actually go through was learning how to argue better. All right. Because again, I'm like, we're done. And she's like that, we're not. and I actually, that guy, Mark, it sounds exhausting just staying in a room until it's sorted. But do you know what? Once everyone calms down, I would imagine at least then it's like, okay, and you get to it. But that's the thing. We try and do something in a heightened state.
Yeah.
Don't we? And then it's not about actually resolving it. It's about who's right or wrong.
Yeah.
And if that carries on in a relationship, then you lose that connection.
Yeah.
And then you don't care anymore. And then you start looking at divorce and those sorts of things.
But what's fascinating is, through your work as a divorce coach, which, as I was saying, is one of the most painful experiences that we can have. Actually, what you're talking about is understanding someone's love language.
Yes.
Whilst we're talking about the language of conflict, it's also the language of love.
Absolutely.
Because to me, hate or conflict is the shadow side of love. And the reason why you're reacting so strongly to someone is because you cared for them so much and they've hurt you.
Yeah.
On either side, from either perspective. And I know when Nick and I, when we had our counselling, from his perspective, it was, she keeps chasing me around the house, trying to get me to, but we haven't finished this yet. And he's running away going, yes, we have. And it's like, leave me alone. Literally was
it's
that.
It's so true.
Literally was that.
Locking myself in the bathroom.
Yeah. But when we broke it down through the lovely lady that we worked with, and she got us to see it from the other person's side, and made us see that actually, from my personal experience, if something isn't resolved, I'm walking on eggshells. And because of my past experiences with some very challenging situations, if I'm walking on eggshells, all kinds of things are going on in my brain, because I think something far darker is about to happen than would in our loving relationship. So for me, my senses are really heightened and I feel scared and I feel like I'm about to come under attack. So it needs to get resolved so I can calm down. Whereas for Nick, if someone's chasing him around they don't want a resolution, they want to keep the fight going. So it was just understanding each other's perspective. And exactly what you said, our reactions were coming from love, not from dislike. I mean, clearly sometimes I really didn't like you because you've been quite rude with your running away. But
Ditto.
But so the theme of today's show is it's never who you think it's going to be. And there's a reason why we didn't tell you who the murderer is and Only Murders in the Building, in case you haven't seen it, because I annoyingly saw it in print and had to not tell you, but there we are. I wanted to ask you about this in terms of when people first start maybe dating after a divorce. Is this something that you have to work through with people in terms of it's never who you think it's going to be, in terms of who asks your ex out? Because this is something that we both have experience in, and I wondered if you had experience.
I think also to add on that as well, I think when you do go through this divorce, it's never who you think it's going to be as the people that are there for you.
Absolutely.
You think,
Oh, my
friendship
goodness.
group, they're going, oh, well.
And it's a shocker, isn't it?
And then the people that do come out and look up, you're like, whoa, hang on.
And that's so true. It's such a good point. And there's something called divorce contagion. I don't know if you've heard of this.
Yes.
So if someone gets divorced in your circle of friends, your little clique that you hang out with and you go for socialising, whether it's dinner parties or going to the pub, if one of those couples breaks up, then there's an increased chance that you will get divorced. And I actually had a client whose husband's best friend had got divorced, and they used to do a lot with them as a couple. And all of a sudden, her husband was going out as the wingman for his best mate who's out on, trying to meet somebody new. And within a couple of months, he said, I don't want to work on our marriage anymore. I think I'm going to be single. And he left her. And she was devastated. But it is a real thing. Divorce contagion is something that's scary too.
I heard that actually, I think this week.
Oh,
and isn't it something like in that, as soon as someone in your circle gets divorced, for the next year, and because there's like a timeline on it as well, isn't there? And I wonder, again, it's like anything. If you're not thinking about that, right, and you're just cracking on, your relationship ebbs and flows like life anyway, it's fine. But all of a sudden, you're witnessing divorce. It's on your mind, and it's like anything that we do as humans. Your body then starts looking for clues and going, well, actually, am I happy?
Yeah.
Is that? Well, look at him doing that.
Also, you see what's possible. The grass might be greener. It rarely is, but it could be, right, in some circumstances like that. So, it just shines a light on other opportunities, I think.
Yeah, remember, kids, it's always greener where you water it.
Yeah.
That's such a good saying. That is such a good saying.
Yeah.
But how do you coach someone through a divorce? Because as we've touched on, there's so many different facets. Whether it's helping them through a loss of friendship group, if you're a mum and you're going to the school gates and suddenly, I had this, and I had it twice, which is horrendous, where you turn up at the school gates and everyone's kind of giving you the side eye. Nobody's talking to you anymore. They don't know the full ins and outs of it, so they're making their own conclusions to it. And maybe because of this subliminal fear of divorce contagion, they're like, right, we're not going to hang around with her anymore.
Exactly.
How do you coach people through that?
Well, it is really tough, actually. And I always think that if anyone who's listening is in that scenario, always go and say hi and talk, because it is very difficult for that person who's going through it. As I know, I've been through that too. I think it's very much understand that individual and where they're going, because everyone's different. Everyone copes with things differently. Some people can handle that level of stress. Other people really find that much, much harder. So looking at the individual and what they need. And also, you can't control what other people are going to do. You can't control who's going to step up. You can't control who's going to be unkind or give you the side eye and ignore you. You can't. But what you can do is you can control your reactions to that and put your own team in place so that any gaps that have been formed by maybe some of your friends not stepping up, you find a way to consciously go and fill those gaps and find other people to come in and give you the support that you need. And that means you don't have those glaring holes in your social scene. Also preparing, I always use the technique mind movies, where you visualize going to the school gates, visualize people ignoring you, but then play through in the most successful way you can imagine how you hold yourself, what you say, the sort of things you might say out loud to engage with different people. Quite often people are scared, aren't they? They just don't know what to say. It's maybe not even what we're imagining in our head that is actually going on in their head, but because they don't know how to approach it. It's like any form of grief. People really find that quite difficult. So they don't want to upset you even more, and that might be why. Or it might be that they, maybe they're worried, like you said, about that impact on their own marriage. Quite often it shines a light on what's going on with them. So again, it's about not worrying about that, but helping yourself to find a way through, taking your control back over the things you can.
I think the thing is as well, like if I look at when I went through my divorce, it was my entire adult life. I'd been building this life with my previous wife. And that included all our friendships, all our business, everything that we had done. And then all of a sudden, that has to separate. And like most people, we had a good group of friends that we would constantly go out with and all that. And everyone starts questioning, what does that mean for the group?
Yeah.
What does that mean for us? And I do. I think it's that you don't even know what that means. And your friends are going through that same, conversation with their partners in their heads going, what does this mean?
Yeah.
Are we still going to go out as a 6, or who's going to make up the numbers, and which side do we go on?
Exactly.
And I think it is very, very difficult. I have a client that's going through a divorce at the moment, and one of the things I said to them is, keep your counsel small, because one of the things I've seen before is where literally the anger and the hurt through everything that's going on, and they just going out to these friendship groups and looking for validation, and to say that the other person is bad. And I think the thing is, sometimes then you just sit in that, and you've got sometimes people that have never been through divorce actually, so don't actually know what it's going through, giving you their opinion on things, and
or simply enjoying the drama. Because I think as well, if anyone listening is going through something like this, and if you kind of stand back a little bit and think about the kind of things that your friends are saying to you, maybe they're enjoying the fact that your life is falling apart a little bit because it's making them feel better about themselves. And that's a horrible thing to say about someone that you care about that is a friend. But we're all human, and sometimes we have really ugly sides to us.
But that sort of takes you back to, you never know who it is.
Yeah.
When you separate, you think that your best buddies and all that going to be there, right? And then people that you do not even expect, even that they expect that they give a shit about what you're going through, reach out and offer you not just support but other things. I was blown away by what happened when I got separated, and the people that massively weren't there. And some of my best buddies were there, and some, they were amazing, but there were some other people who I'd helped through a particular situation, didn't see them for dust. And then people who I would have called friendly associates, bent over backwards to make sure that I was in a good place and everything. And I think that's the thing. It's just like, what you do, I think every legal practice should have a connection to someone like you. Because when they deal with the black and white stuff, no one helps with the emotional and, should we say, the grown-up stuff. The stuff that's actually going to help you, not make you feel better for a short term because, again, he's a dick, she's a bitch, whatever. But the grown-up stuff that's going to get you through this as unscathed as possible, so that you do not lose yourself, you do not lose a huge amount of your life in figuring out, what's just happened, but also how you're going to get through it and what happens next.
Interestingly, GPs are now referring to us a lot more, because I've got a lot of friends that are GPs, and when I was sort of telling them what we're doing, and we have like online support groups and things that are really accessible, not expensive, they are finding it so hard because people come in and that, people go to their GP saying, I can't stop crying, I can't sleep at night, or I'm worried about the impact on the children. And my friends that are doctors are saying, well, we sit there and we, do our best to be friendly and be like a friend to them for half an hour, but we can maybe give medication, but that's about it. So actually having the support from people that are specialists in this field, for their mental health and well-being, you don't necessarily need to go down the medication route. There's a lot you can do yourself to take your control back and to manage those negative emotions and that roller coaster you're thrown onto. So working with GPs and legal practitioners as well, but I think the GPs is where we can make a massive difference to a lot of people, because they are broken and they don't know where to go.
I think the thing is like anything in life, you wouldn't ask someone the best restaurants to go to in a city if that person had never been to the city. Yet we do, don't we, when it comes to divorce, and we start going, what should we do, and I think knowing that there's someone like you, and I know that you've got several hundred coaches under your business that operate in cross waters and bits and pieces, because obviously divorce law is very different in different countries and things like that. Going to see a professional that actually really is genuinely focused on you and making sure that you get through it is super important.
Do you mentioned divorce laws there. Can I jump in with this amazing fact that I found out? Did you know, you may know this, Sara, that in Delaware, in America, you can get your marriage annulled if one or both of you got married as a dare?
Wow.
Did you know that?
I
That
didn't
is an
know that. I
actual
did not
legal
know that.
law.
That is a random.
How do you prove that? Do you have to have it written down? Or can you just say it? Oh, I only married you as a dare. Ha! Didn't mean it.
You get your mate to go, yeah.
Yeah.
You imagine that in court. Yeah.
But it kind of got me thinking, okay, that's a pretty ridiculous reason to get a marriage, for a marriage to end. What's one of the most ridiculous reasons that you've heard in your work for a marriage ending?
Do you know what? I don't hear many sort of ridiculous reasons. Most of them are quite devastating, to be honest.
Okay.
I think a lot of them are just can't take it anymore, or they've cheated. I don't hear many that are ridiculous.
I know my final straw was ridiculous. And I remember for ages, it's what I used to say to people in terms of, why did I get married? Really, the truth was a lot darker and not very funny, but it was the final straw was he couldn't make cauliflower cheese.
Oh.
And that was it. It was just like, I can't do this anymore because we had a very young child at the time. And I had to run out the door to go to work, and I'd left all the ingredients for cauliflower cheese on the side. And he got very cross that I'd left them out. And said, no, I've left them there for a reason. I was making cauliflower cheese. Can you make it? And I was seconds from going live on TV on the phone going, no, that's it. You just boil it a little bit. And now that's it. Grate the cheese and do the thing. And I thought, why am I doing this? This is insane. So yes. And I know technically that's not on a form that you can fill in. Could your husband make cauliflower cheese? But it was
we
right up
talking
there.
about something the other day. It's like that there you can, because before it wasn't it. It was about where you'd grown apart. What was
reconcilable differences.
That was it. But isn't there like a new terminology now that they use?
There's no fault divorce now.
Yeah.
In Australia,
No
New
fault
Zealand,
divorce.
you have.
Okay.
Oh, is it here now?
Yeah. We
Amazing.
got it earlier this year in April. So that means you don't have to allocate blame on the divorce papers. So you can just ask for a divorce. It's about
Right.
time, right? It's
Yeah.
about time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that just allocating blame was so archaic because you start off with an argument, whether you're arguing or it's amicable and you want to split anyway. So yeah, it's well overdue. But yeah, now you don't have to allocate blame. You can just say we want to get divorced, and you can also file together rather than one person having to go first.
So it can be quite amicable.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's great, isn't it?
Is that the same as the 2-year rule, where if you left it for 2 years, then you could both just file papers and then that's it. You apply to get your. Is that right? Am I imagining that?
Why do you need to know this? Sarah, stop talking. Don't answer any more of her questions.
I'm asking for a friend. I'm sure I remember a friend of mine telling me that that was what they did. They lived apart for 2 years, and then you could,
I think that
apply.
Yeah, I think that used to be part of it. That if you didn't want to do that, then you could just live separate lives.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there were cases where judges said people couldn't get divorced because they didn't have a good enough grounds to get divorced. There was a very famous case a couple of years ago.
I remember that one, yeah.
And that was just unbelievable, forcing somebody to stay married.
How can you not let someone do something
The
that they
grounds
want
weren't
to do?
strong enough, apparently, according to this particular judge. Yeah, which is, obviously there was a big backlash against that one, and she did get divorced in the end. But yeah, the reasons weren't sort of big enough. But obviously that meant that people were having to put a lot of stuff in that wasn't really true to make it sound worse than it actually was. So.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm aware of years ago, people, like you said, where there had to be a significant blame factor, that they were having to lie on the paperwork.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right,
Yeah.
to get through that system so they could get divorced.
Yeah.
I mean, on my paperwork, it was simple. I was to blame. It was me. I think it's great moving forward because sometimes, right, as we know, in this fast-paced world that we live in, not everything lasts forever. Doesn't mean it didn't work. Doesn't mean it broke. It just stopped doing what you wanted, know, and that's okay. Because we had a little conversation earlier, didn't we, about the numbers, and you can tell us this, but the amount of people that stay in unhappy marriages too. Yeah.
So 50% of people do get divorced. That's quite a common stat, and it's worldwide actually. But a recent survey that the Daily Mail commissioned showed that 78% of people who are still married are unhappily married.
Wow.
Yeah, and then there was a statistic of 56% of people don't fancy their partner anymore in those marriages. So again, a lot of people stay together though for so many reasons, for the kids, because financially, especially at the moment, it's very difficult. So it's not always clear cut, and sometimes the lucky ones are the ones that can split their lives and move on. Some people can't do that, and also some people still believe marriage is forever, which is what it used to be a couple of generations back, right? And you just work at it. If it doesn't make you happy, you still stay. And I think it's good now that at least we have the choice. If it isn't making you happy, sometimes it is the best decision. I mean, you guys would never be together if you hadn't got divorced. So
yeah,
amen to that.
I do think as well, it's recognizing that relationships will ebb and flow. There will be happy times, there'll be tricky times, there'll be choppy waters, and there'll be calm waters. And it's understanding whether the period that you're going through right now, is it just a time of choppy waters that you can navigate through together? She said, throwing in so many different analogies. Or actually, has this officially come to a point where it's irreconcilable?
Well, and I think you've said this for years since I've known you as well. It's like most people think when they say I do, they're done, and then it's honeymoon and everything like that. But ultimately, that's where the work starts.
yeah.
And not enough people put the work in and just allow things to happen.
Yeah, so true.
And I think, that's why we saw a relationship coach, because we came to some challenges, and we've been back when we were arguing, especially being a blended family, and Andrea's viewpoint and my viewpoint didn't match. So it's not like, well, it's, we just carry on. We go, okay, let's go back to Ellen, her name was, and let's see what she says, because our ultimate goal is to get on.
Yeah.
Stay happily married, have fun while we're doing it, and make it work. So, when you do get these challenges, it's being able to reach out, look online, whether, like you said, there's so many things out there that don't cost money. We were fortunate that, we had some money, we were able to go and do it, and she lived around the corner from us randomly.
And she was great.
And she was amazing.
She could say more with a raised eyebrow. She was amazing. And anyone who's been through any kind of, whether it's coaching, counseling, therapy, what have you, especially as a couple, deep down, when you sit down there, you want to be proven right. You may think that I'm a beautiful, lovely, altruistic person, and it's for the greater good. No, you want whoever is sitting in front of you to go to the other person, you're wrong, she's right, it's all good. And it was so funny when that never happened.
Yeah.
That is when the ego walks in, isn't it? And we were sitting there like that going,
yeah, go on.
Yeah, she said that. Yeah. That's fine though. What do you mean fine? Right.
Look, I thought we would wrap up today by just playing a silly little game.
I love a silly little game.
Play a silly little
Have we
game.
got tequila?
Oh, we should do that sometime.
Oh, it's not that silly then.
No, it's not that. It's not that silly. I thought you and I, Nick, we could play Snog, Marry, Avoid, or Snog, Marry, Divorce, seeing as the theme of today's program, and maybe it will be not who you think it is. So, Nick, if I read your names out, you have the choice of Snog, Marry, Divorce.
So, how have you chosen these people?
I have chosen these people because they are couples who also do podcasts. Do you see what I did?
Amazing.
Okay, do you see
She's
what I
so
did?
creative.
I know.
Genius.
So, Nick, Snog, Marry, Divorce, Abby Clancy,
Okay.
Vogue Williams,
So try not to look too happy. Mm-hmm.
Rosie Ramsey.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
So Abby Clancy, Vogue Williams, and Rosie Ramsey.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to divorce Rosie Ramsey because I don't know what she looks like.
So it's based purely on looks.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know them, so
you don't know them.
we're not
Okay, that's
going
fair
about
enough.
personality, are we?
Okay, yeah, okay, fair enough.
Such a great
fair enough. Sorry,
conversationist.
the little feminist in me jumped up at that. Really?
Well, in all fairness, I've met one of them, right? And,
Yeah.
and she was super lovely. So I will go with Mary Vogue Williams.
Oh, she's very nice.
And she's
yeah.
got such a lovely Irish accent. And my dad will be happy that I've married an Irish girl. Sorry. And our snog Abby Clancy.
I think there's a queue of people who'd like to snog Abby Clancy.
Oh, I thought you'd set this up. Where are they? Bring them in.
Please welcome. Do you know what? I would snog Abby Clancy. She's a gorgeous girl. She's a gorgeous girl. Okay, so
I'm taking you got their counterparts then.
Yes.
Peter Crouch,
Yeah.
Spencer Matthews,
Yeah.
and Chris Ramsey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. So, okay, I've met two of them. Again, unfortunately, I'm so sorry, Chris Ramsey. We're going to have to sort this out, Chris and Rosie, because we've not met you. We should meet. We should sort this out.
Let's not get divorced.
No, that's not. So I'm sorry, Chris. I'm going to divorce you because we've not met. That's the only reason. But you both seem super lovely. So that's now between Peter and Spencer. Who would I marry and who would I snog? So I have previous in that I have pretty much married everyone I've snogged. My list of people that I've been out with is so low. I've literally married all of them.
That's
so
crazy.
apart from I think two. Gosh, who would I snog? Okay, I think I'd snog Spencer and I'd marry Peter. Because that'd be funny because he's so tall. And I think I'm tall, but I'm not as tall as I think I am. And I think we'd look really funny walking around together.
You know what? That is exactly what was going on in my head. She does have this height thing, right, where she thinks she's super tall. And then now and then she goes, oh my God, look how tall you are. And I'm like, I know. And she goes, but I can't believe how short I am.
In my head, I'm very tall.
I know.
So there we
You'll
are.
just be constantly having that conversation with
I know,
Peter.
I've got a very sore neck. Brilliant. Okay, a little bit fun.
Amazing. Oh, thank you very
Sarah,
much.
thank you so much for joining us today.
thanks
That
for
was
having me.
really fascinating, and you will have helped so many people. You really would have done. And that is it for today. I hope you join us next time as we continue to muddle through and attempt to master midlife.